It was much odder. Odder? Is
More,
that
odder?
More odd? Stranger. Let's go with stranger.
Stranger.
Hey, it's Sue.
And Megan in the restricted section.
Today we're doing our Booktubeathon wrap-up.
Yes! And while we do that, we're gonna drink Goodwood, which is an American pale ale, aged on poplar.
I think Goodwood is the brewery.
Oh.
Made in Louisville, Kentucky.
Louisville, Kentucky. Brewed with limestone water.
That all sounds real fancy. Yeah,
Fingernails makes it. She is hard to open
I
beer. That's good.
Like it. I've already had a couple of these the other night, and I think it's pretty good. I like it.
That's way different than I thought it would taste.
Yeah,
but I like it. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm into it. It does kind of have that like woodsy flavor.
It does.
Which I'm into. And I think maybe, I could be mistaken, but I think all their beers are brewed with like aged with wood. That's probably why they're called Goodwood.
Goodwood.
Alright, so guess what, guys? We both completed all 7 Booktubeathon challenges, reading challenges.
7.
All
bitches.
7. This is unprecedented.
This is a restricted section fucking first.
We actually were 100% successful at a readathon.
For real.
This is the first time this has ever happened.
We've never done this before. I'm shitting my pants.
I will say that we didn't do any of the like video or Instagram challenges because like,
bitch gotta work.
Ain't nobody got time for that.
No.
Like,
bitch busy.
no. But we did
all
it.
7
we
fucking
did
books,
it.
man.
Megan's stack looks much more impressive than mine though.
Well, you are missing.
I'm missing 1 book, but even still. I had to return one of my books to the library, so I only have 6 of them here, but here's 6 of my 7 books that I finished. And then Megan.
One of these is a YA novel. Don't let it fool you.
One of mine's actually a children's book, I think. I think The Little Prince is a children's book. But anyway.
Anywho.
Let's get into our wrap-up.
Let us do it.
So the first book that I finished was the one that I already returned to the library, which was this one. Megan read it too. The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid. And this is about a elderly woman who's telling sort of her life story, and she was a big movie star in the like 50s through the 80s. And she's telling her story to this kind of not well-known journalist, and she like handpicked her, and she doesn't know why. And I'd heard a lot of hype around this book. I'd heard 0 negative things about it, really. And so I really wanted to read it, and it definitely lived up to the hype.
I loved it.
It was so good. I gave it 4.5 stars because my only real issue with it was like I felt the dialogue was kind of stiff sometimes and didn't flow very well. But other than that, it was really good. It has really good LGBTQ plus representation.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I loved it. I actually gave it 5 stars because I really fucking loved it.
Yeah, it was amazing. Read it.
Read it. Read it. So that was the 6th book that I read for Booktubeathon. The first book that I read was the first issue, or the first volume, I guess, not issue, of The Wicked and the Divine. I also really loved this. I gave it 4 to 5 stars, but this is about these 12 gods return to Earth every 90 years as like they inhabit the bodies of teenagers, and then they're like celebrities and they perform and stuff, but they die in 2 years and then they don't come back for 90. So I thought it was a cool premise, and I really dig this story. The artwork is really cool, and I really like it.
The second book I finished was The Time Machine by H.G. Wells. Oh, and I didn't mention 7 Husbands was for the challenge of a book with green on the cover.
Yes.
And this one was for the challenge of read about something I want to do, which is time travel.
Time travel.
This is a classic sci-fi story about this man who travels forward in time to like the year, it was 800,000 something AD, and travels to this very, very different world. I don't know if I should explain it. Maybe I'll just leave it at that, because I didn't really know anything about it going in, and it was the weirdest depiction of the future that I've ever read, I think. It was so weird, and it did have a lot to do with like the class system, because you had these like beings who were the upper class and then the lower class, and they were like very different from each other. But yeah, it was really interesting, but yeah, it was so weird.
It sounded bizarre when you were talking about it the other day.
But I gave it, I think, 4 out of 5 stars. Nice. So I really enjoyed it.
Nice. And I also didn't mention that this volume of The Wicked and the Divine, I read for both, like, let a coin determine your first read. I let it pick this. And then I also wore the same hat the whole time I read this. So.
Oh, yeah, and Seven Husbands also was my coin toss winner, so yeah, there we go.
So next I read Lore of the Great Turtle, Indian Legends of Mackinac Retold by Dirk Geringus. I can't say that.
Dirk Geringus.
That's the only way to say that. Did I read this for a challenge or did I just read it?
I think maybe it was just an extra, like to get you to 7 books maybe.
I think that's probably what it was. It was okay. I mean, it was published in the 70s and it was compiled by a white dude. So, alright.
The third book I finished was The Poet and the Flea by G.E. Gallus. And this wasn't for any specific challenge, it was just to get me to 7 books. And this is a reimagining of the life of William Blake. It's much stranger than I was anticipating, because there's this, it's like a big human-sized flea.
Oh. Oh.
Isn't it weird?
That's weird.
So it was very odd, but I enjoyed it, and I like the artwork. It's very, like, you can kind of tell that it's all, like, homemade. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because you can even see sometimes there's places in the text where you can see where, like, the pencil, like, the original pencil lines have been erased. Yeah. But I kind of liked that about it. It made it added to the charm, I suppose. Yeah, but I enjoyed it. I think I also gave it 4 out of 5 stars. I do think that maybe I should read a little bit more William Blake and then maybe go back and read this again, because I'm not super familiar with his works. I read a few of his poems before I read this, but yeah, it was pretty good though.
I was looking at the challenges to make sure I didn't read that for a challenge I forgot about. So next I read Asylum by Madeline Rue. And this I read for a book with a beautiful spine, because I thought the spine was kind of cool. It's all dark and creepy, and
it's kind of like iridescent too.
Yeah. So I dug it. This is a YA novel about these kids who go to a college prep program, and they end up getting dormed at this like defunct asylum, which obviously has
not creepy at all.
Not remotely. Has some creepy shit going on. So I liked this. I think I gave it 3 stars or something. I mean, it was good for a YA novel. I mean, there was, of course, like teenage boy falls for teenage girl.
Yeah.
Weird drama. Whatever. But it was interesting. It was a really fast read.
The next one I read was Fortune Box by Madeline Swan. And I read this for the challenge of reading a book while wearing the same hat. And I actually wore a hat that looks... I kind of tried to make myself look like the girl on the cover, because I have a hat that looks pretty similar to that. And then I did some, like, smoked out
eyeballs,
under eye makeup and stuff. But it was kind of fun. You can see it in the vlog. But this is a collection of stories, and they're all interconnected because they're all about a different person who gets a mysterious package in the mail. And when they open the package, something very strange happens to all of them. Not the same thing, it's different things depending on the person. But I actually really loved this. I thought it was like really fucking good.
Really?
I gave it 5 stars because I just
Aw,
it was
that's cool.
I enjoyed it a lot because it was so weird because it's bizarro fiction, so that's kind of a requirement.
Right.
But I don't know. I just really liked it, and the stories were all so short. Because I mean, this book is
it's a little
tiny as it is, and there was several stories in here. I don't remember how many, but 9. There's 9 stories.
That's cool.
In this little tiny book, but yeah, they were all just, I don't know, really fascinating and really good.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so I very much enjoyed that.
Yeah, that little girl on the cover is really cute.
Yeah.
And creepy.
Right.
So next I read From Here to Eternity, Traveling the World to Find the Good Death by Caitlin Doughty. I read this book for like something I want to do because I want to be more comfortable around death and with, you know, the idea of death and dying. And this was really great. I liked this a lot. I think Caitlin Doughty is super awesome. And I think, like, how fucking cool is it that she just, like, travels the world and observes death customs.
That'd be awesome.
Like, there was this part where, I can't remember where she was, but she was like...
This inside paper is really cool, too.
Isn't that neat? This was because there's this Buddhist thing where they've gone, like, all electronic. And so, like, you can have your ashes interred at this, like, Buddhist temple. And when you go in, the Buddha, where your ashes are interred, like, if you enter your name or scan your little card or chip or whatever, it'll light up.
Huh.
So then if you want to, like, pay homage to your loved one or whatever, it'll light up so you know where your loved one is.
Huh.
Yeah, it's pretty neat. But she was at this place where they had, like, these skulls. I can't remember what they were called. But they basically, like, had a festival for the skulls, and they brought them out, and, like, different skulls were good at different things. So, like, you could ask them for different favors or whatever, but you would have to ask the right one based on what they were good at, which I thought was cool. And then there was a chapter about composting the dead, which I can't remember where in the US they were doing that. But it was cool because I had just read 2 sci-fi books where they had fictionally composted their dead because they were either on, like, a spaceship or in a silo. And so that was what they did to kind of perpetuate the life cycle or whatever, contribute to the life cycle, but then also because they don't really have storage to just have a bunch of dead bodies. So it was cool to read that in fiction, but then also to read a real life account of that. So
yeah, I
really dug it. I think I gave it 4 stars.
So the, what am I on? Fifth book that I read was Warm Bodies by Isaac Marion. And I read this for the Book to Movie Adaptation Challenge. And this is about a zombie man who... who he eats the brain of this guy, and, like, that gives him this guy's memories, including memories of his girlfriend. And then the zombie ends up, like, protecting her from being eaten, and they kind of form this connection, and things happen. I guess I won't give it away.
Things occur.
I feel like most people probably know.
Yeah.
I don't think, yeah, but, like, anyway. And I liked the book. I thought it was really interesting. It was kind of cheesy.
It was.
And my, like, logical brain was bothered by the fact that there was no, like, feasible explanation for any of it. It was all just like, it happened because of feelings, you know? And so that kind of bothered me, but at the same time it was an interesting story, and it was a sweet story, and also kind of dark and creepy at the same time, which I enjoy. The movie was alright. It was cheesier and fluffier than the book, but I thought it was okay. I wouldn't watch it again, probably, but I enjoyed it alright when I was watching it.
I also read Warm Bodies. I really loved this book, which is weird because I do not like warm fluffy things, but
yeah,
like,
I think weirdly, because I'm usually more apt to enjoy warm fluffy things,
yeah,
and you enjoyed this more than I did.
Yeah,
I think it really just bugged me that, like, there was no reasonable explanation for any of it. Like, I'm fine with warm fuzzies when it's like
you can explain
cute,
it,
yeah, but
right.
Like it wasn't necessarily the warm fuzzy part that bothered me. It was the, like,
lack of explanation.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just thought it was really sweet, and I loved it. Also, it was gross and creepy, and so I feel like I'm probably okay with warm fuzzy as long as it's also gross creepy. all of those elements must be present. I didn't like the movie because it was too warm fuzzy and not enough gross creepy. So
I think I have lower standards for movies than I do for books. So the movie, I was like, it was alright.
I really hated the ending of the movie because, like, the ending of the movie and the ending of the book are pretty different.
Bonies didn't. The Bonies, I pictured like, this is stupid, but when I was reading the book, I pictured the Bonies to be like the spooky, scary skeleton cartoon.
I kind of did too, like those Halloween skeletons. That's kind of what I pictured. So I was like, what the fuck?
I know. In the
like,
movie, they're like fleshy.
They're creepy. They're like mummified, kind of.
Yeah.
But no, I also pictured like, you know, those dollar store skeletons that you buy that hang on a string that are like,
yeah,
that's what I pictured.
Yeah. The movie, I was like, oh, these are creepy.
I don't like that.
But also the CGI on them wasn't great.
No. No. Also,
when they were running, they looked pretty stupid.
Like,
he also looked really dumb when he was running, but he was still trying to lumber like a zombie.
It's like, get it together, man. But like in the book, he had like he could run better. Like he started running, and then he was like, oh, I got it, and then he was running. But like in the movie
his legs are moving fast, but his arms are still like flopping about.
Yeah, I'm like, what's wrong with you?
Yeah, it was kind of dumb.
It was kind of dumb. That's okay.
Anyway,
any hoozle.
So the 6th book that I read was for my beautiful spine, and I read The Lathe of Heaven by Ursula K. Le Guin. And this is a sci-fi novel where this man, when he dreams, his dreams sometimes change things in reality. So like if he dreams, like an example he gave in the book was like, if he dreamed that he had a pink dog, he might wake up to find that he has a dog that's been dyed pink. Or he might wake up to find that pink is just a color that dogs can be now. Oh. And so it like changes the entire
reality.
Yeah.
Oh.
So some pretty significant things change because of his dreams, but he's the only one who knows that it's changed.
Okay.
Everyone else just thinks this is the way it's always been.
Okay.
But he starts seeing this psychiatrist, and the psychiatrist, because he's there, like he hypnotizes him and uses some sort of machine, I don't know, but he can influence his dreams, like tell him what to dream about. And because he's present when it happens, he also realizes that things have changed.
Huh.
And so the psychiatrist starts purposely changing things that he wants to change. He's doing it, he's trying to do good,
right?
But he's not doing it in an
With
evil
ill
way,
intention.
right? But it's still
a manipulation,
right?
Yeah.
And like major things change. That's like depending on what way you look at it. Is it good or is it bad? You know. And this was my 4th Ursula K. Le Guin novel that I've read, and I hadn't previously not liked any of her work that much. I thought the Earthsea Cycle books that I read were all right, but I hated The Dispossessed. Yep. I hated it, but I am thrilled to report that I really enjoyed this book.
Nice.
I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. I do think she's still a little too heavy-handed with her message for my taste.
A little too preachy.
But it wasn't nearly as bad in this book as it was in The Dispossessed, probably because this book's much shorter. And I just thought, I thought that the whole premise was really interesting and her ideas were really interesting, and yeah, I really liked it. Huh. So I'm gonna, I finally like Ursula K. Le Guin.
Hey.
Yes, I felt like a bad feminist because I didn't like her, you know, because she's like a huge name, you know, as like a woman in science fiction, and I was just like, I don't like her, and I hate that I don't like her work, but praise the gods of science fiction.
Right. Praise Cthulhu or whomever.
Right.
I kind of feel like that about, what is her name? She wrote like Picnic on Paradise.
Joanna Russ.
Yeah.
I haven't read anything by her yet.
I read one book of hers, and I can't remember what it was called now, but it was like psychedelic sci-fi or like experimental sci-fi, and it was so fucking bizarre. I felt like I was on an acid trip like the whole time I read it, and I just did not dig it at all.
Maybe you should have been on an acid trip while you were reading it.
It made more sense, man. Like, I don't know. But lastly, and I was going to read, I do kind of feel like I punked out a little bit because I was going to read Brave New World by Aldous Huxley, and I started to, and I got like, I think 40-ish pages in and realized this was not a good pick for a readathon. I want to take my time with this. Shit. So I decided at that point that I was going to read the second volume of The Wicked and the Divine, which is a graphic novel, so I do feel kind of like I punked out. And there is an acid trip in this book.
An actual acid trip?
Yeah. Well, ish. A God-fueled acid experience, if you will. But yeah, so I read this. I really love, she's about to trip in this sequence. She's like, oh, no, I'm fine. Nope, nope, nope. Not fine. But yeah, so I really liked it. I like this series a lot. I have also read volumes 3 and 4 now because I went on a kick. I want to buy more because there's 2.
How many volumes are there?
I think there's 6 thus far. And so I bought the first one. I was like, I'll see if I like it. And then we went back to Comic Cave and I bought like the next 3. And so then I think there were 2 more I didn't buy that I'm gonna go buy.
You're gonna go buy it.
So it's fine. I like it.
Well, I punked out a little too because I was going to read The Deep Sea Diver Syndrome, but it was the last day of Booktubeathon, and I had to read, let's see, I had to finish this book, I had to watch Warm Bodies, and I had to read a 7th book. And so by the time I got The Lathe of Heaven and watching Warm Bodies done, it was like 10:30 p.m. So I had an hour and a half, and I knew that I wasn't be able to read The Deep Sea Diver Syndrome in an hour and a half, so I scoured my shelves.
What can I read?
And I found The Little Prince by Antoine de Saint-Exupéry. And I've read this before, but I was like 13 at the time, so it was a very long time ago, and I wanted to reread it anyway, so I did, and I loved it. This is such a cute little book. It's about this man who, he's a pilot, and he crashes his airplane in the desert, and he meets this little prince. Uh-oh, my battery's dying.
Oh no.
But he meets this little prince. I'm going to finish really fast. And the prince tells him about all his adventures and all the planets that he's visited and all the people that he met.
That's awesome.
And it's really, really good and a really, really clever, intelligent little book. And I loved it, and I gave it 5 stars.
Yes. So, we completed Booktubeathon. Boom, boom, boom. This beer is good. There are some links below where you can find us elsewhere on the internets.
If you haven't subscribed yet, please do.
Bye.
Bye.